Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of The Magic Show. I'm your host, Evan Irwin, and today we're going to talk about the myriad of deck choices available to you and I this regional season. Ready to take a stroll through Deck Mart and proceed with purchase? Right this way.
Life is a highway, I will ride it all night long.
Well everybody, this week's title segment is taking us into the huge, and I mean huge, standard environment. We're looking at a sea of Tier 2, a vast array of dozens of hopefuls, decks that work and don't work, decks that come close but fall short. Is there really a Tier 1 deck in this mess? We have Drownu, but it scoops to Gruul, which can't race Dragonstorm. Are those the defining decks, or merely the most popular? The most important thing is this. Whatever you choose, you must have a favorable matchup against at least two of these decks pre-sideboard. Deck choice is a very personal thing. As today's show is running the day before regionals, I don't expect many players to drop whatever it is they're planning on running and choose in another deck instead. Rather, I'd like to go over the highlights of each deck, what makes them good and what makes them bad choices for the event. First up, Dragonstorm.
It's good to be king, if just for a while, to be there in velvet, yeah, to give them a smile.
This is the big daddy, the elephant in the room, the metagame definer. Dragonstorm is the World Championship deck, and it places highly in tournament after tournament. You can rest assured that you'll probably run into this deck if you see some success at regionals. The keys to playing this deck are knowing when to use your remands, when to hardcast dragons off of Lotus Blooms, and other small decisions that some players think don't matter, but certainly do. Knowing whether to, quote, go for it, or keep building counters on that calciform pools to Giga Drouse out your opponent is just another key sign of a master magician and world champ. Next, come along and ride on my fantastic voyage through Heezy Street. Your regional's weapon of choice must be prepared for a turn 1 Curd Ape, turn 2 Bloodthirsty Scab Clan Mauler. You must be able to recover and realize they have at least 12 points of burn to throw at you during this process. If your deck doesn't gain life or create walls or creatures big or bigger than those the Gruul player turned sideways, you can rest assured you'll be in side drafts before lunchtime. The only question for me is whether Peter Akeley was correct in packing 10th Street Hooligan, or whether the pundits are right saying that Scorched Rusaka is the way to go. Peter said he wished he would have run another 10th Street in the sideboard, while others proclaim it's subpar. Scorched Rusaka, however, deals with both Bridge from Below and Tendrils of Corruption. I think the right call here is Scorched Rusaka, but do note that it was 10th Street Hooligan alone that destroyed my crucial white mana sources in the Star City Games tournament and left me in 3rd place. Next we have Narcolepsy, or That There Fast Dredge deck. Call it whatever you want, but this is easily the coolest name for it. The deck can be green-black or strictly black-blue combo. I wish I could tell you that this is in any way a good deck, but I don't think it is. Turn 4 Goldfishing can easily turn into Mold of 5 and just lose. This deck packs it into so many cards, and many times a Resolve Tormod's Crypt is enough to demolish it. Play it at your own risk. Zugoif is next. Oh yeah, here I am spouting in Brian David Marshall's column about how I think Tarmogoyf has potential, and then it qualifies a bunch of people in Germany. Awesome. However, this deck has one flaw. It begins with Captain and ends with Tickles. That's right, there are 0 giant solid fuses in these deck lists, and I've tried the deck, that exact qualifying build even, and I found myself lusting for the old Captain to come and kick some ass for me. Other than that glaring omission, you can't argue with success or the fact that Tarmogoyf is regularly a 3/4 for 2 mana.
Better like this, that, and this, and it's like that, and like this, and like that, and it's like this. The new
Good old Spectral Force. Just when you think everyone forgot about him, he comes creeping back to deal 8 to your face. This is a deck that feels under the radar but continues to do well. An 8/8 Trampler generally demolishes anything that relies on 2 3s for 1 and even 3 4s for 2, and with such a huge frame it can still race Dragonstorm. But then again, it has problems with...
Don't break my heart. It'll break yours.
Ah, yes, the control player's favorite colors, black and blue. There's a lot of symbolism in this life of ours, including when someone wants to grind another Magic player to a slow death, black and blue seem to fit the theme. Drownu is still powerful, and Venser hasn't even begun showing up in winning lists. The fact is that while the Star City Games $1,000 Open was bereft of blue, don't think you won't be facing down Teferi before your regionals day is over. Be prepared for mystical teachings and watch out in the mirror for an early draining Whelk. It's how HERBERHOLZ and Midamura lost in the most recent Pro Tour. The good old black and white guys are a favorite of Richard Feldman, who now once a year reminds us that yes, Ghost Council of Orzhova is amazing and can beat some decks single-handedly. Otherwise, discard and disruption are usually enough, with Bob Mayer cranking out the cards to get you somewhere near a winnable position. This deck is also packing Martyr of Sands, a popular and now rogue choice for the deck. But then again, it's not like anybody plays Extirpate or anything. Which leads us to the Flores Minute. This week, Mike Flores took a break from his normal high-level theory to a 10-game session with Mark HERBERHOLZ. But not just Mark HERBERHOLZ, but Mark Resident Genius 2007 HERBERHOLZ. What is the hubbub about this? Well, it's called presumptuousness, and many people don't like Mike, quote, calling it like he saw it. But what is the Invitational anyway? Well, once upon a time, until last year, there was this thing called E3, and there, booth babes would rub up against raw geek flesh for mere dollars a day. And also, Wizards of the Coast chose that event to promote Magic Online with a bunch of famous players and silly formats. The winner gets his or her own card. Yes, I have to be gender non-specific here, but it kills me that we have no famous female players. Sheesh. Anyway, you guys out there get to vote on who makes these spots. Since the next one happens in October in the huge German games festival ESSEN, in about 2 months it's going to be a little uncomfortable reading or watching your favorite articles. They'll begin to discuss these votes, either asking for yours or giving you a good candidate. And of course, you can bet the Magic Show will be asking you to send it to the Invitational, providing you with video coverage the likes of which you've never seen. Stuff so amazing you'll drop your drawers? But we'll get to that high point when it can actually produce something. Until then, Flores said he thinks HERBERHOLZ earned the title, but then again, just because the most prominent player in the game declares his pick to the world, why should we go along with it? Wasn't it a little weird to keep calling HERBERHOLZ the Resident Genius 2007? I've spoken enough about this deck. I think it isn't a wise choice, but many people put weeks into it, and they'll be damned if some 2-bit author tells them their baby is ugly. But really, it is damn ugly.
Is it just a waste of time?
I wish you luck. There are so many aggro-happy variants out there, you wouldn't believe it. You can't really stand up to a turn 1 Savannah Lines, let alone a turn 1 Curdape. Sure, you can get lucky with repeals, and certainly you hope your rewind resolves against Dragonstorm, but in the real world, of the dozens taking this to regionals, 1 or 2 will get the necessary control and or aggro control matches needed to top 8 with it. It's also difficult staying out of the draw bracket once you face anything resembling the mirror. And a big event like regionals calls out the control players like nerds to a Joss Whedon blog post. Do note that Take Possession is actually better than Annex in the mirror. Sure, one completes Tron, but the other does that and takes their Teferi. Ah yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the deck that took 3rd at the Star City Games $1,000 Open, and fortunately or unfortunately, lots of people took a shine to the deck, and I've heard rumors of many taking it to regionals. I certainly won't knock it, it's obviously a good deck. However, depending on the number of islands across from you, it could be a long day. The key spells you need to resolve also cost 2, such as Wall of Roots and Glittering Wish, so if control players finally figure out that Spell Snare is absolutely ridiculous in the metagame right now, this deck could be in trouble. As you may have noticed, the mana base was still awful last week, and our own Richard Feldman showed up with a new mana mana base and a new approach in the forums. This new mana base and non-reliance on Orzhov's Signet has been worked into the final build, as you can see in Josh Silvestri's article from Wednesday. He basically posted the list I planned on showing you today, except I would add a Godless Shrine instead of a Brushland and give some long thought for Orzhova Church of Deals as a slow but powerful win condition. Now, upon further testing, this deck does one thing against Dragonstorm. It resolves Persecute or it loses. Testing shows that Castigate or no, you're probably losing on turn 5 or 6 latest without Persecute resolving. So for those who see a first turn sleight of hand happening, you know what you need to resolve. But here's the question, is this the deck I want to take to regionals? Now, it's obvious I'd like to qualify for regionals, and a control deck is probably my best bet, but there's this concoction I gotta share, something that's been part of my Magic history since the very beginning. One of the first things I ever said in the Magic show, as we know it, was, quote, "Friends don't let friends play White Weenie." And here I am advocating playing it. What? Huh? No, seriously. I didn't think it was any good either. You can stop laughing. For real. Quit. Then I took a whole weekend on Magic Online, looking at the field out there, what the Ween did best against them, and then put that knowledge into action. It gets you the following deck list. Now, as for impressions, I don't know what to tell you, but I will tell you how it works. First up, Sidewinder Sliver basically says all slivers are unblockable, because nobody wants to be punked by a flanking sliver. Secondly, Sidewinder into Sanu Sliver on turn 2 is the only way to play another 2-power creature for 1 mana in Standard, essentially giving you a flanking Asamaru. Never a bad thing. Thirdly, Gelid Shackles is absolutely amazing and should not be dismissed. It allows stuff like Blade of the Sixth Pride to actually connect to your opponent's face and lets you shrug off any monster. Temporal Isolation is nice and all, but when every single mana counts, Shackles is there for you. Hierarch? Shackles him, swing, take some more damage. Oh, and at the beginning of your next turn, he gains Defender. After a long weekend of tweaking, I entered an 8-man standard queue with this deck and won the tournament after facing Speed Narcolepsy, Red Deck Wins, and Izzatron Wildfire in the finals. I would have actually shown you some gameplay footage, but it turns out MTGO sucks. I know, shocking. Apparently in the manual it says that your replays in the, quote, my game section will accumulate dozens of them. I got about a day's worth, and when I was ready to record the footage, the tournament games were gone. So that is your pre-regional show, everybody. I'll be in Charlotte, North Carolina this year, slinging cardboard and hopefully doing well at it. Our very own Ferret crowned me Hero Scrub earlier this week, which means I'm both loved and reviled. Nothing could make me happier. Wish me luck, fellow Magic players, for all the Captain Tickles I've signed, for all the great fans I've met, for all the unknown scrubs who also love the rogue builds. You guys make it all worth it. Until next time, this is Evan Irwin, tapping the cards so you don't have to.